everybody. Welcome back to Eden Fractal. We're here in our second epoch. We just had a autumn break. Hope that everybody had a wonderful time. I'm very pleased to be here with the incredible Rosmari and the incredible Tadas. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Thank you everybody for watching. We have some exciting topics on the agenda for today that I can share and give a little presentation. Some new updates with the Eden Fractal as well. Rosmari, Tadas, if you'd like to say anything. We just had some nice conversations and some good times before we start recording. So if you'd like to say anything before we get started, then feel free, and feel free, of course, to jump at any point you want to get in the presentation as well. Any thoughts, or should I get to the presentation?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, world. And speaking of the world, we see this beautiful artwork that we put together about our strategic vision and how we're fostering futuristic decision-making processes with collaborative respect games. So that kind of gives you a little idea of what we're going to be discussing today. So if you're not familiar with Eden Fractal, I recommend going to edenfractal.com. We actually just had a new website update over the break. So Eden Fractal is a community that's dedicated to optimizing collective decision-making with fractal consensus processes and pro-social games. We've been doing this since 2022, actually since 2021 in some ways with the Eden community, pioneering ways for communities to coordinate that are fair, fast, and fun. And we have bi-weekly events that everyone's welcome to join. We have a firmly defined vision, as I just mentioned, that all communities and organizations have the tools and methods to make the best possible decision making. And we have a mission, a very clear mission that we're implementing fractal decision making processes throughout society via collaborative research, development, education, gamification, and community engagement. You can learn more about both of these on the website and how we came to consensus about this over the past 2.5 years. And there's also some updates to like what are fractal decision making processes. So if you're not familiar, it's where we can go into breakout rooms and play different kinds of games or do different kind of processes like the respect game that help communities coordinate effectively at any scale by breaking down large scale decisions into smaller scale decisions in smaller scale breakout rooms and so forth, where every voice matters and decisions scale naturally. So there's more in details in the article. You can find out the weekly events where you can RSVP and invite friends. We love to meet more people and really grow and expand these processes. And they provide a great place to network with talented builders and learn about these really powerful ways to empower your community or your organization with the open source tools that we're building and learning more about these processes. We produce videos of each event too, so you can play a role in the videos, you can share your thoughts, you can help raise awareness for what you're doing, and you can also learn from the videos. We have over 110 videos that we've produced over the past 2.5 years. And like I said, we have open source tools that we're building with the Optimistics team, such as the ORDAO software that Tadas is building, several different apps and processes and concepts and so forth that people can use now to empower their community. So encourage you to explore the website and learn more about Eden Fractal. And check out the videos too. So when you go to edenfractal.com/videos or the videos up there, you can see our recent episodes along with timestamps and so forth. So we recently celebrated the season finale and we talked about the impact of Optimism Fractal and the role of Eden Fractal on educational role about governance and talking about our role in the superchain as well, the Ethereum super and the superchain on Ethereum. We've also been looking at the Respect Games app that Vlad and Lenar, the async devs, have built, and more about the data fractals and Orec and ORDAO and much more. We recently entered our new epoch too, so we've been talking about this too. So you can check out the videos and learn much more in the videos, as well as the Eden Careers YouTube channel, which is the team that produces the videos for Eden Fractal, as well as Optimism Fractal, the community that's using our processes on the Optimism Collective. We're having another event on tomorrow on Thursdays for Optimism Fractal and Optimism Town Hall. I recommend people check out the Eden Careers YouTube video, subscribe, share with friends to learn more, and RSVP for the Eden Fractal events on the Optimistics calendar, lou.optimistics. As I mentioned, we also have the Optimism Fractal and Optimism Town Hall events coming up tomorrow on Thursday and on a weekly basis going forward too. So encourage you to check it out. The video from Optimism Fractal's season debut of season 5 is now available. You can check it out. And I have a bit of community news section before we get into the agenda for today. So for one thing, as I mentioned, we had done some updates, or I was working on some updates for the Eden Fractal website, and I added a blog section that goes into more detail about what our fractal decision-making process is, what are pro-social games, why fractal democracy is necessary throughout society and on networks like Ethereum and the superchain, our mission, our vision, and our plans for Epoch 2. So you can explore that at edenfractal.com/blog. We've also made a huge amount of progress in technical development too. You can check out optimistics.io/tool to learn about the toolkit with the Respect Games app and Fractogram app and ORDAO and much more too. You can learn about the key benefits and the software product suite and scroll through for articles about all of the products and tools that we're developing here to learn more about respect and how it can be helpful for your community and so forth. So really excited about all the development that we've done over the past couple of years. And yeah, Optimism Fractal Season 5 just started, so I encourage everyone to join these. It just celebrated its 1 year anniversary, actually, and actually just migrated to the ORDAO software that Tadas built as well. So lots of exciting stuff we discussed there, but I recommend people to join the events that you can find at Loot Up, Monstrous Optimistics, or Optimism Fractal. And also can check out more about ORDAO at optimistics.io/ORDAO, which will be a topic that we discussed today. So speaking of today, today's agenda, we're going to be exploring the ORDAO software deployment for Eden Fractal on base and setting strategic goals for Epoch 2 in 2025, and also talk about our game design as well. Maybe some of this we'll get to, or we'll save for a future week too, because there's lots that we can discuss after the break, but that's kind of like a high-level overview, generally discussing how to actualize our vision and execute on our strategy or execute on our mission. What strategies will be most effective to get us there to help all community organizations benefit from these fractal decision-making processes and these games that help enable fractal decision-making processes. So you can see here in the tweets from the Optimistics, we encourage you to like and retweet to help spread the word and get involved in all the different ways that you can. And then on that note too, I also just published a document. I don't know if we'll get into it now, or maybe we'll hear a bit from Tadas and Rosmari first, but I did publish a document in the Eden Fractal Telegram group, or I shared it there, as well as several other related groups about Eden Fractal's 2025 strategy for nurturing transformative growth with fractal decision-making processes. So here I was basically kind of summarizing all the progress we've made over the past years and where we're at now with our mission and our vision, and welcoming everybody back. And then I made four draft proposals for community feedback. I figure we can discuss these now and then maybe implement them in our next bi-weekly meeting. But we'll see how far along we get. And basically, these four proposals are to update or actually create core intents to focus our efforts in 2025, perhaps around the respect game and respect. Create a new game prompt that's aligned with our evolving ecosystem. I can go into more details about that, about what that game prompt is, but related to promoting the respect game and collective decision making and human coordination. A potential schedule change to optimize community participation. I have some ideas about how we might want to change the day and time of Eden Fractal events, and the ORDAO deployment on base to expand our impact. So yeah, we'll see which ones we want to focus on in order, but there's an article that goes into more details here, the strategy document. So maybe I'll just provide a quick overview there that we can dive in deeper if we want. But this is on Notion currently. Everybody's welcome to make comments here or in the Telegram groups. There's a bit more of an introduction here, and then a bit more about our current foundation and future direction and where we've come over the past 4 years and so forth. There's a proposal for 2 core intents, as I mentioned here, with success metrics and rationale about why I think it's good to focus on these core intents and why focusing on core intents in general can be helpful. I see Rosmari sharing, pretty impressive. Thanks, Rosmari. Curious to hear your thoughts about it. And then another one about respect token utilization, the respect token that comes from respect games, or also communities that implement processes like the ORDAO Council, the council from the Respect Games app, that use the respect token for different processes and measuring the success and growth of this, as well as different brands and variations of these games as well. Some people call them different things as well. And then setting a game prompt, I have a couple different options here. One example is what did you do to help, or what did you do over the past 2 weeks to help people benefit from the respect game, enhance collective decision making, and improve human coordination. And I have some rationale about why I think this might be helpful. Part of the idea, by the way, is for Epoch 2, we're planning to deploy the ORDAO software and then start playing respect games at each bi-weekly meeting. For the past 6 or 7 months, or maybe a year or so, we've had kind of more open discussions at Eden Fractal, and it's been more in an educational context, but we're planning to start playing the respect game now that the software is ready. And so I'm thinking about prompts that we could use and intents that we can use to focus our efforts here. And then there's details and considerations. I don't know if you had time to dive into this, but we can explore it. Happy to answer any questions or discuss it. And then we'll also have time to discuss it at future events as well. Idea for potential change of the events time, maybe to Thursdays, and that's kind of a bigger topic looking into. And then the proposal to implement ORDAO on base. I'd also talk about using the Respect.Games app too that Vlad and Linar have built, which is really powerful and really exciting. Recommend people to check it out at Respect.Games and start your community to start playing the Respect game. This is more focused on asynchronous Respect games, and it has a lot of powerful features. But I think the reason why I proposed ORDAO, well, one of the reasons, there's a lot of benefits for both of these apps, but ORDAO is more focused on live events and so forth. And we're also talking about why deploying on base and why deploying on Ethereum. So that's kind of like an overview. I figure I might as well just provide a little overview before we get into discussion about those 4 proposals. And then we can decide if we want to focus on the ORDAO implementation first, because that's kind of a foundational element to determine if these things will be feasible and if we'll do them and so forth, and how we want to configure it. And then also there's some longer term focus too. I started working on sort of strategic framework documents about strategic goals and impact measurement, which we talked about at a event a few weeks ago, or a few months ago actually. Product and service development roadmap, long-term implementation and institution building to make this a much more sustainable process for a long time, and marketing community growth strategy. These documents are less refined, but they're there in case anybody wants to dive into them. And then there's a bit of like a conclusion here as well with next steps and emphasizing the incredible opportunity that we have ahead of us to help build sustainable funding mechanisms for public goods, help all communities and organizations do better decision making and so forth. So encourage people to check out the article. Also, if you're not familiar with ORDAO, optimistic.io/ORDAO, where you can learn about the state-of-the-art set of EVM smart contracts that's designed to facilitate decentralized on-chain governance for initially Optimism Fractal, but it's also helpful for all other communities. It features the Orec optimistic executive respect-based contract, or optimistic respect-based executive contract that Tadas has built. He just released some updates actually in Discord in the Optimism Fractal chat, and this article has links to the open source repositories, as well as details about what is ORDAO and key resources, and what is the OREC, central component of ORDAO, why it's novel, why this consent-based system is so helpful, deployment details, and lots of videos. Like, for example, at past Optimism Town Halls and Eden Fractal events, we went more into detail about the ORDAO and OREC software, also videos from community members like Patrick as well, who have made videos in the ORDAO office hours. So just to provide some context for anybody who's catching in for the first time, you can find it there on the ORDAO website. And then, yeah, I have these other articles too that people can look into, but I think that's enough for now. So very curious to hear your thoughts, Tadas and Rosmari, and happy to go into any of these more detail or have the discussion however you see it fit. What do we think? Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? Anything else you want to say in addition to hello to have you out there?
Glad to be in Harry Potter Fractal.
Yeah, we were
Okay, so
talking. Okay, go ahead. People get that. There's an inside joke there, everybody.
my first impression after reading this is that I like this. Uh, for me, the most important parts are regarding the schedule. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I have to think more about it if it makes sense strategically. But yeah, I kind of like it. One thing that I'm worried about is that, like, uh, it seems that for a lot of us, contributions to both Optimism Fractal and Eden Fractal would overlap. So how would that work? Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe not sure if it's optimal uh, to have such overlapping respect games. Well, technically, Eden Fractal's mission is encompasses optimism. No, although not exactly. Wanted to say that Eden Fractal's mission encompasses Optimism Fractal. Maybe it encompasses development of Optimism Fractal, but not Optimism Fractal's mission. That's interesting. Anyway, what do you think, Rosmari?
Um, Maybe we can brainstorm on that, yes. Although, yeah, I think Dan has prepared a better answer. I mean, I think for Eden Fractal, we'll probably push the mission of Eden Fractal, whereas for Optimism Fractal, we're pushing the mission for scale, like growing optimism mainly. Whereas Eden Fractal is much more about the distribution of that, of the tools and methods across communities in general.
Yeah, that's, you could say that Optimism Fractal's mission is about growing optimism, and Eden Fractal's mission is about growing fractal ecosystem, which is more than just fractals on optimism.
Yes.
Yeah, intuitively, I really like this arrangement. Uh, and by the way, Dan, it's very well written, especially the beginning, very nice intro.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you liked it. I've worked on that quite a bit over the past few days to help refine it to make it better and better. So appreciate that. If it would be helpful, I could pull it up on the screen too. I know that I was only able to share it. One of the issues was that because I was working on it quite a bit, and we also had a kind of a crazy end of the season with Optimism Fractal and so forth. I was only able to share this like a day before the event. So if you haven't had a chance to read it in detail and stuff like that, then totally understand. And the idea of here was this is kind of like a first sharing of these ideas, and then we can have, a couple weeks before the next event to consider them more deeply. We can also, share some first thoughts here, and then share more thoughts throughout the chat or leave comments on the document and so forth, and then discuss in more detail next week as well. So I heard Rosmari say, I think that it was a good idea to share the screen. So maybe I'll go ahead and do that. We can kind of dive into specific aspects if it'd be
Yes.
helpful. Okay, cool. So yeah, so I suppose first, I don't know if there was some other topic that was already open, but I can perhaps respond to what Tadas mentioned about the timing events and also the potential for overlapping contributions. So
Yes, and maybe we can go through all of the proposals, maybe one by one, to give kind of quick feedback or something after.
okay, sounds good. Do you want to start with the proposal one, start chronologically, or that's not chronologically, but like with the first proposal first, or do we want to start with the subject of the timing events in the proposal
Yeah,
three to potentially change schedule of the events?
to start with proposal 3.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, I'll click over here and we'll go down to proposal 3. So this proposal, I kind of just kind of glanced over it pretty quickly before. I didn't really go in detail about it, but the suggestion I have here, and this is a new idea that I just came up with over the past like week or so. So I'm still not sure, but the suggestion I have is to move Eden Fractal events to Thursday, the 17th UTC, which is currently the time of Optimism Fractal events, which happen on a weekly basis. But my thinking is that um, I'm thinking of proposing to the Optimism Fractal community to change to bi-weekly events for Optimism Fractal. That's something we've discussed before. And I wrote out several reasons why I think that this could be helpful in the strategic benefits section. One of the reasons is that it will provide more focused time for development and implementation and to pursue broader opportunities. Optimism did just come out with, if you check out their forum, gov.optimism.io, then they came out with a lot of new initiatives for retro funding and missions for season 7. And overall, Optimism has been supportive of Optimism Fractal in many ways, but there's also just a much larger world out there as well, with like many other different ecosystems and communities that can support fractals as well. And so I'm thinking that it'd be helpful to make it so Optimism Fractal is a bi-weekly basis, and then it still keeps that kind of flow of that kind of weekly event. If Eden Fractal and and Optimism Fractal switch off on this bi-weekly basis. So that's the general idea there, that Eden Fractal would change to Thursdays at 17 UTC. Thank you, Rosemary, for sharing the guide to season 7 document. I can also perhaps pull it up if it'd be helpful for anybody, but I think I gave a decent overview there. And then I think that would make it so that we'd still have the flow of the weekly events. And I think it'd actually be really helpful for another reason too. Das was mentioning how the overlapping of contributions, and yeah, both of you identified it correctly. I think that Optimism Fractals is more focused on specifically helping optimism, whereas Eden Fractals focus on helping fractals, which are overlapping to some extent, but also different and unique. And I think one of the things that we can do now that we have the tools ready for Eden Fractal is use Eden Fractal's tools and events and processes to really like foster the development of the respect game and foster the implementation of the respect game and respect and so forth in a more targeted manner. Because when we are awarding contributions to optimism, that's helping optimism, which is great. It's helping optimism fractal, but that's also not specifically focused on helping people who are implementing fractal decision-making processes in general, maybe on different networks as well, or in local communities and so forth. We want to help people build fractals on the superchain, and the superchain is providing immense opportunities. So many great things happening on the superchain. And supporting Optimism Fractal is still a primary goal for me, and I think for everyone here. I see tremendous growth for Optimism Fractal, but at the same time, this can allow us to expand the scope so that we're also helping to more specifically provide a place with Eden Fractal where people can get awarded and come together to build fractal decision-making processes, help promote the respect game, implement the respect game, and so forth on all kinds of different networks. So that's kind of my idea there. And then as far as overlapping contributions, I imagine there'll be some overlapping, but also I don't think it'll be that different, because if we measure them both on a bi-weekly basis, what do you do for the past 2 weeks? Then and we could do it differently. We could do it like past week or something like that, I suppose. But they do have, their own specific purposes and goals. And if they do overlap to some extent, then that's okay, I think, because I'm sure like some of the things that Tadas builds, for example, or that Rosmari promotes, will be applicable, both helpful for optimism and helpful for fractal decision-making processes as well. And that deserves respect from both communities. So that's kind of my answer there. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Also, welcome Zal too. Thanks for joining, Zal. Hope that you're doing well. Hope you're having a great day. We're just diving into this Eden Fractal strategy document for 2025, growing fractal community, something I think you'll be very interested in as founder of
Awesome.
Zaal
Yeah, no,
Fractal.
I was excited to join in and get back into the Eden Fractal. I think it's a little more in line with everything we're doing, as much as I love popping in for Optimism Fractal. And yeah, of course, my timing. But it's good to be here. It's good to see you guys. It's good to see some lovely faces. And yeah, I'm just listening in.
Okay, sounds great. Well, thanks so much, Zal. Great to hear from you. Appreciate you listening and sharing your thoughts. Feel free to share any other thoughts that come to mind as they come to mind. And with that, I suppose I can pass it over to Dawson Rosemarie if you have any thoughts about that idea for changing the timing of the events. Well, once again, too, this is the one is the most like potential, because I haven't even really formally brought this up to the Optimism Fractal community yet. And I'm still kind of digesting the new changes for optimism governance and what's best. But this is what I'm currently thinking is best to do, and to bring it up there in the coming weeks.
Well, regarding the overlap between what we would be presenting in Optimism Fractal versus here, I think why I'm concerned about this is would Eden Fractal bring some utility to people who come here? Like the way I currently see people who would join would be people who are participating in other fractals, and we also come here as well. And I imagine we would present the same contributions that we present in their own fractal and their other fractal, which are more oriented towards like a specific chain, specific project, and so on. And yeah, I don't think that would be like people don't have a lot of time, and I'm worried that people would not come if it does not bring them utility. And currently, Respect Game does bring them utility by them being able to share what we're doing with others, and learning about what others are doing and so on. And yeah, for me, I'm leaning towards more like, remember my higher order fractal idea?
Yes.
Yeah, so if I don't know, monthly or so Respect Game where representatives from fractals would come and share what they're doing with their fractal. I don't know, there are a lot of aspects in that too, so I'm not sure if it's better, but just currently think that it might bring more utility to people if it's like that.
Kind of like a fractal.
Yeah.
I like that a lot for where I am. Perfectly in line. So I'm all for it. So would love to help out in any way, shape, or form if we do something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's fractal. It has to go fractal.
Yeah, I I really like the idea of the higher order fractals as well. And I remember the article, and I think we had a couple of discussions about that at Eden Fractal too. So I'm interested in this and appreciate you thinking about, the ways to provide the most value and utility for people because, I'm fully aligned with that. It's just a matter of figuring out. We've had a lot of discussions about our strategy, and now it's kind of like just figuring out what will our strategy be specifically for 2025. So these are all great ideas to consider. I can respond here. Of course, Rosemary, feel free to jump in if you have any thoughts about this.
I want to add that it depends on the question we ask. So,
Mm,
but I'm
yeah,
also
so
up for, I'm not attached to doing Eden Fractal bi-weekly because of the reasons that Tadas brought up too. I mean,
Just for my understanding, I heard a little bit at the end there about the changing of the times and doing Eden Fractal on Thursdays, but can you just give me a real quick what you guys are thinking? Because it sounds like a great idea to do both on the Thursday bi-weekly, if that's what you guys are proposing.
Yeah, so well, to be clear, it's just me proposing it right now. Tadas and Rosemary probably, I spoke with this with Rosemary a little bit early in the week, and I just shared the document yesterday, so they haven't had time to like really maybe, fully like, uh, well, I'm not sure. I know Tadas has read it, but I don't know how much they're proposing it or aligned yet. But this is the plan that I'm proposing here for changing the schedule of Eden Fractal events to Thursday at 17 UTC and reducing the cadence of Optimism Fractal events to bi-weekly so that Eden Fractal and Optimism Fractal rotate on a bi-weekly schedule at the same time. And then also in addition to, as Rosary mentioned, it depends on the game prompt, and there's 4 other proposals that are in this document as well. So the proposal 1 is to set core intents, and maybe we could say maybe it should be proposal 2 or something like this. But I think that the core intents is kind of a helpful concept to introduce as part of our strategy to execute on our mission. And this is all about like implementing the respect game and utilizing respect. And then that kind of informs the game prompt, which is what Rosemary mentioned. And my proposal here is to set a game prompt where we start playing the respect game at biweekly Eden Fractal events. And the option that I'm kind of leaning towards is what did you do over the past 2 weeks to help people benefit from the respect game, enhance collective decision making, or improve human coordination? These are all open to feedback, just kind of my first ideas and so forth. And then that would mean that every other week for Eden Fractal, we would come together to answer this question specifically. What do you do over the past 2 weeks to help people benefit from the respect game, enhance collective decision making, or improve human coordination, which would be working towards these intents of implementing the respect game throughout society and enhancing or increasing the utilization of the respect token throughout society as well. And then Optimism Fractal
So
would still stay the same as far as helping optimism. Yeah.
awesome. Just for recap, when we normally have these Eden Fractal meetings, there's no fractal actual game being taken place. Or is what one of the things you're proposing is to do like what we're talking about this, whether it be fractal or the Eden Fractal game, but how are we going to be promoting fractal governance? We have not done that before in Eden Fractal, or we don't currently do that, correct?
Yeah.
It's more of a discussion.
Yep. So for context, Eden Fractal did used to play the respect game before we called it the respect game.
Okay.
Actually, for Eden Fractal's first, I believe, 75 weeks or so for it or so, we had played the fractal process basically, or what is now called the respect game. And
Okay.
that we split on a different network EOS and so forth. And then at about week 75, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we switched over to just kind of this conversational format, and we started doing Optimism Fractal respect games. And then about 6 months ago or so, I created this article proposing Epoch 2, which was generally pretty well received. We talked about it at a few events, and we have a few videos about Eden Fractal Epoch 2. And the idea here was that once the software is ready, which now it pretty much is, to start using it, we would start deploying the software on base, and we'd start playing respect games at Optimism or at Eden Fractal again as well. So this is kind of like following up on this proposal to start playing the respect game. And
I
start
love
doing
it.
that at Eden Fractal again. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you for updating me.
you're welcome. For anyone who's interested in seeing more about that Epoch 2 proposal, that's on edenfractal.com/blog Epoch 2. And then, yeah, curious, I see Tadas is unmuted. I had some responses to what you shared there, Tadas. If you want, I can respond, or if you want to share any other thoughts there, or Rosemary, then feel free. I suppose I'll go ahead. Um, So yeah, I do, to Rosemary's point, it might be helpful, like Rosemary had suggested. We only have 20 minutes left in the scheduled hour, so we could go longer if you want. I'm happy to, but also if we want to keep it at punctual and keep within an hour, then it might be helpful to go into more details about these intents, because I think that my proposal here is kind of like the proposals kind of go together. So like it really does depend on what the game prompt is, because if we decide to set something totally different for Eden Fractal, like what do you do to help I don't know, help people read books or something. I don't know, just saying something ridiculous, and it would be obviously very different from Optimism Fractal. This game prompt I propose here, it is more focused on like what do you do to help implement, fractal decision making processes, but I try to make it in a way where it's like even if people don't know what fractal decision making processes is, then they could still see this and internalize it in their own way. They could help promote or help develop the respect game in various ways, as well as other things that are related to the respect game, but aren't necessarily just about the respect game, like collective decision making and human coordination. So we can kind of widen our scope so people can contribute in all kinds of different ways if they're not interested in, if they don't know about the respect game and fractal decision making process yet, and if they're not involved with optimism, then these are ways that people could still get involved. And there's some pretty detailed rationale and current context and considerations and alternative formulations and ways that we can welcome adjacent innovation and different kinds of contributions, stuff like that. I think it would be helpful to have a page basically that explains what kind of contributions are like that we're looking for, but really try to also sum it up so that people can just read that one question and have a good idea, feel welcomed, and have it be, different enough from, say, Optimism Fractal or Zaal Fractal or something else like that, that it provides utility and like a good reason for people to come to Eden Fractal, and also it promotes the development of, say, like the respect game apps and the implementation of the respect game and stuff like that in a way that, say, just the Optimism Fractal alone can't do, or can't do as well as having Eden Fractal do specifically, and same with the Zaal Fractal. And to respond to some of the stuff that Tadas said, um, so Optimism Fractal will still have the same goal, and it would just have a twice as long contribution length. So from the point of view from where we're currently at right now, there wouldn't be any more events. There'd be less events total, there'd be less respect games total. So whereas right now people are sharing what they did to help Optimism Fractal over the past week, then it would be like, okay, well now just every 2 weeks. So if anything, it just like people um, people don't have to share their contributions every week at Optimism Fractal, because they can share their contributions every week or every other week at Optimism Fractal. And then there'd just be another event instead of having Optimism Fractal again for contributions specifically to optimism, contributions specifically to the development of the respect game and collective decision making and coordination and so forth throughout society. So that's one note. And then another note too is that it would be more targeted. So like in all these aspects, there's going to be some people who contribute to optimism who aren't really contributing to fractal decision making processes or the respect game or collective decision making or human coordination or those intents. So some of those people coming to Optimism Fractal might not be so interested in coming to Eden Fractal, because they're just, hey, they're building some other kind of infrastructure, other kind of community on optimism. Currently doesn't have anything to do with the respect game. Maybe they'd be interested in learning about it over time, but at the current time, like Eden Fractal wouldn't provide as much value to them as Optimism Fractal. Similarly with the Zaal Fractal, maybe they're interested not so much in the respect game. They like playing it, but they're there mostly for the music, and they're there mostly for the arts and stuff like that. And so people would share very different things. Like they would share at the Zaal Fractal, here's what I did to, contribute to Web3 music, and I onboarded musicians and so forth. And then they could come to Eden Fractal as well, and they could say, hey, I helped this community that's leading this implementation of the respect game process, and I did that by inviting musicians to this. But like the ultimate framing would be different, because one would be like in line with, say, the Zaal Fractal's mission or the Optimism Fractal's mission, and it's stated in that context. Whereas like, here's what I did to help optimism, and if you built the respect game or helped develop the respect game, then that's kind of like a means to an end of helping optimism, and you would explain it in that way. Whereas if you did a similar kind of work, but then you come to Eden Fractal, you would convey it in sense of the means to the end is the end being the implementation of the respect game and the development of respect and the fractal decision-making process and so forth. And so you might say, I helped, optimism in this way, and that's helpful because it helps Optimism Fractal, which helps implement fractal decision-making processes. That's society. Hopefully this makes sense as I'm saying here. I see Tadas's hands raised, so I'll pass it back to you, Tadas.
Yeah, interesting what you mentioned. At the end, that you might have the same contributions, but you present them in a frame them in a different way. How did it help Optimism Fractal versus how did it help Fractal ecosystem as a whole? But before that, what I wanted to say that you basically have two sets of people in fractals that I see. One is people who host, people who contribute. Their contributions are about developing Fractal itself, and there are people which are develop things that are aligned with mission of a Fractal. So basically, I think that's what you were saying. You have people who contribute something to Optimism, and they share it in Optimism Fractal. And there are people like me and you, Dan, and Rosmari, who are doing a lot to support Optimism Fractal itself. Now, for that second set of people who contribute to Fractal itself, for us, I think we will basically be able to share with exactly the same set of contributions in both fractals, because like sure we can change the prompt, but the prompt still has to be aligned with the mission of Eden Fractal, and it's clear that if you are developing one of the fractals, it's obvious that it's aligned with mission of Eden Fractal. So I don't see how we can get around that we can basically present the same set of contributions. Well, of course, yes, not the same, because one week we have one fractal, another week another, but I don't know. Well, what you said at the end regarding how you could frame it differently maybe changes a picture a bit. Yeah, but yeah, my main point is that we have, I think for Eden Fractal, people who biggest contributors are those who are developing fractals itself rather than people who are doing something for the concrete missions of fractals. And for those exact people, I have the most doubts regarding the overlap. Although maybe I'm wrong, maybe it will work nicely. Maybe we have to try, I don't know.
Yeah, well, good points. I suppose two things I would respond with. One, reiteration that it still is just having the same amount of fractals in total, or same amount of respect games in total. So it would still just allow people like, me and you and Rosmari and Zaal who are contributing to fractals to share their contributions to fractals once per week, basically. And one would be for Optimism Fractal, the work that we're doing for Optimism. Via Optimism Fractal, we would share Optimism Fractal. And then the next week at Eden Fractal, we'd be sharing what we did to help Optimism Fractal, as well as, any other work that we did for fractals as well. But it wouldn't be like we're doing, more respect games. We're doing the same amount of respect games, basically, but we're doing some of them focused specifically on those fractal decision-making processes. And also one thing that I like about this especially is that it puts more emphasis and awarding on like our products, which are most core. Like we really want to help Optimism, but what we want to help the most is like the development of the respect game and the development of fractals. So it encourages people, not just right now, we're encouraging people entirely awarding contributions to Optimism, which is great, but by focusing more on using our tools to measure and award contributions and recognize contributions to the respect game and fractal decision-making process and so forth, then we're using more of our efforts in a more focused way to develop our core products. So I like that aspect because we can maybe get, a lot more contributors to Fractal specifically because they have more of a specific reason to do so. They can come in through something like Optimism Fractal and realize, hey, I can contribute to these fractal processes more and get a respect for them by joining Eden Fractal and so forth. That being said, also too, one thing I want to mention is last time we talked about this idea of game prompt ideas. I think it was at our last event about a month ago. Tadas, the suggestion that you had, which I agree with at the time, was that we could also do different kinds of respect games. So I wanted to bring that up again. That's still an option. I'm open to doing it differently. This is just how I'm seeing it now. But the idea there was that we had respect games not for measuring contributions to a specific goal, but to measuring contributions to discussions during an event. So that's another idea that we could do. But my thinking is just, I think we're going to be more effective overall in achieving our mission if we are measuring contributions like what you did over the past week or two to help fractals and to help achieve our mission, as opposed to just what you do to help guide the conversation, basically, or help add to the conversation during that 1 hour. So that's why I kind of thought that this is a better idea than that. And then the idea of doing a once a month meeting. So I'm open to doing once a month, but I figure that having it bi-weekly might be good because then we can still give people a consistent weekly basis, especially if we have it on the same, rotating schedule with Optimism Fractal. We're not like drastically cutting down on the amount of total events, and that kind of weekly flow that does have some benefits that people like with the accountability and so forth. Um, but um oops, lost my train of thought. It's gone. Oh yeah, but we'd still be offering like that weekly event, and then I think that kind of would accomplish some of the things that happen from the fractals. I think one problem with the higher order fractals idea right now is that there's just not that many fractals, and there's not that many people who are like leading fractals and stuff like that yet. Like we want to get to that stage where there's more. Um, And right now, like one of the things I was trying to do with the game prompt is make it accessible both to people who are contributing to fractals as well as contributing to adjacent fields like governance in general or public goods creation in general and stuff like that. And so that way we can attract people to these events who aren't necessarily in a fractal yet and like leading a fractal, because I think that requires like I think the higher order fractal idea can be really great, but that's probably like a more future thing to do. Maybe we could do it now, but there's only really, I don't know, maybe half a dozen or a dozen fractals, like they're varying to some extent, and maybe only a few or a handful that are operating like consistently and have like a decent amount of participation. So this would allow us to like basically expand the total amount of people contributing at fractals, but people don't have to necessarily have their own fractal start or something like that to join and earn respect.
Well, I think like 4 fractals, like it's enough to have higher order fractal idea. Uh, like there are more fractals over time, but not all of them are active all the time, it seems. Yeah, but there is something in your initial idea too. Remember when I talked about OPF3 idea last year? One of the things I was considering is separating contributions to optimism, which are contributions to Optimism Fractal's mission, from contribution to Optimism Fractal itself. And it's interesting that this idea of yours kind of would naturally do that separation, at least for contributors like us as well, which might be useful. Yeah, because currently we in Optimism Fractal we are talking about development of fractal software and so on. And we are saying our mission is to help optimism, but like it's not always clear like how it exactly helps optimism. So having the Eden Fractal meeting who could help us like make us more focused. Our focus could become more clear in Optimism Fractal and in Eden Fractal.
Yep, that's true. I agree. And I also worked on, by the way, I don't think we talked about it, but I was working on that retro plan, which I didn't actually have the chance to implement because we had some other things pop up with the retro funding season at the time and that whole recognizing impact article and everything like that I shared in the chat. So that kind of took up my time. But the idea for retro was like directly inspired by the OPF trees, and so planning to do that. I think that that could be that that's a good opportunity to explore for both Optimism Fractal and Eden Fractal and other communities using these kinds of reputation tokens as well. We have just over 5 minutes left on the scheduled time. I am happy to go longer if you want. We could wrap it up now or in 5 minutes, but also it might be helpful to go a bit longer if you want to, because we haven't really gotten into all the proposals and we haven't talked about ORDAO specifically either yet. So I'm very happy to stay for after top of the hour if you'd like, and I think it might be a good idea so we can get a bit more discussion, but also happy to go with whatever the room thinks is best. but I would love to at least discuss a little bit of ORDAO too before we go. And Zal?
I was just gonna say I got a rock here at the end of the hour. Definitely think that I have a did you haven't proposed any of these yet, correct?
Right now these are all proposed, but they're kind of like draft proposals.
So I don't
So
know if I have any what's the deal with Eden Fractal proposals? Because like I've been in a bunch of discussions over the last like I don't know 4 months, whatever it was since I joined. But I don't think I've earned any tokens or like how does the voting process work for Eden Fractal proposals?
yeah, good question. So for a long time, for about a year and a half, we had a process that we called Eden plus Fractal that Tadas had designed, where we would elect delegates in each of our breakout rooms, and then those delegates would form councils. It was a different way of doing a council, and we approved a lot of proposals like that. But then, basically, around like the 75th meeting or so, when we stopped playing the respect game, then that consensus process kind of stopped,
Yeah,
basically.
stopped. Okay,
Yeah, and so we
cool.
haven't had a formal consensus process. It's just kind of basically just
Yeah, if
hearing from
you're
the
coming to
community
the
and
meetings and having a conversation. Okay,
yeah,
cool. I like
yeah.
it.
But part of the
Awesome.
idea here too with implementing ORDAO is that we'll regain a consensus
Have
process and have
yeah,
it where we can use respect and so forth too.
I see. I yeah, no, I love everything that's been discussed. I'm all for it, Dan. Honestly, anything you bring to the table, I'm always down to support and be behind. So I appreciate all of you amazing people doing all of this amazing work. I saw Tadas's message about ORDAO, and trying to like plan on figuring out how we can finally implement that in the Zaal Fractal in 2025. So we're moving and grooving, and I'm just excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Sal. I really appreciate your support, and I fully support everything you're doing too. I think you're doing amazing work, and I'm really excited to see the ORDAO implementation for Zao Fractal, and it's wonderful to hear all your updates and all your thoughts. So thanks so much, and I hope you have a great day.
I'll stick around for a couple more minutes after, but yeah, I'll probably be popping off. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks, all. Tadas, Rosmari, what do you think? Should we wrap it up and think about it? I know this has been a lot of information, so we can wrap it up whenever, or do we want to talk a little bit about ORDAO or any of the other proposals
Yes, or
first?
that a bit.
ORDAO a bit, okay. Okay, cool. Well, I don't know if Tadashi you want to lead the discussion there. If you want, I can share my screen again. I kind of gave a little overview. I can give a little introduction again. But that's one of my proposals to adopt ORDAO. Yeah, going back to, oh, this is sharing the other page actually. I don't know what this is sharing. I don't know what I'm sharing. Sorry, I messed up. So yeah, I wrote a little section here about why I think it's good to deploy ORDAO on base as the primary coordination infrastructure for Eden Fractal events. It provides a little bit about why ORDAO. I considered, as I mentioned before, the Respect.Games app. And I still fully want to support that app as much as possible, and I believe it's going to do profoundly helpful things. But I think that ORDAO is more fitting for Eden Fractal for a variety of reasons. Like how it's for synchronous group coordination. I really like the governance features. I think it's really powerful. It works with Fractogram and so forth. So those are some of my reasons for the proposal, as well as we talked about why base, and base is built on Ethereum too. So I also figured it's good to mention why Ethereum. I think that generally moving fractals to the Ethereum base ecosystem provides a lot of benefits. So I linked to articles where you can learn more, but I think that's basically. I had some questions too. I guess I lost it, but I had some questions for Tadas about like when we'd be able to implement it. I think Tadas said he thinks he'd be able to do it by the end of the year. And then like if there's anything that we should do, like in terms of, I don't know, anything we should know. I know Tadashi just shared that document or there's updates that Zal mentioned. I haven't had a chance to read those yet. Um, but I'm curious to hear just how the progress has been going. And then yeah, maybe I'll check my notes to see if I had other questions written down, but like technical timeline, feasibility, and ideas if we should implement in any other different way. And I suppose, over the next couple weeks, we can figure out the game prompt and stuff like that. But just having the technical infrastructure will help us be sure that we can use it. And my idea too would be that starting with the first event, I think Eden Fractal and Optimism Fractal would make sense for both of them to go on a brief winter break for holidays and then come back with these changes if we decide that they're good changes and during the first event of 2025. and then this would kind of guide us for 2025 and next steps, and we'd be using that. So that's my plan, if it's technically feasible to do so, and if the community thinks it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's I could definitely basically I'm not right now. My plan is to develop an ORDAO next version of ORDAO, which I call 1.1, and that will basically include all the stability improvements and fixes that will make it easy for me to deploy new to deploy ORDAO for new fractals and to support these new fractals. And yeah, so I plan to make release of this new version on December 18th somewhere. Now after that, I don't know if I will be able to fully get ready for before the new year, but January definitely. So somewhere in January I could try to deploy it before, so that we have it on the first event of after the new year, but I cannot promise that. But soon after, I think, and that's the same for Zaal, for Zaal Fractal.
Okay, sounds good. Well, yeah, if it's later in the January, then that's all good too. It doesn't need to be the first event. I appreciate you working on that, and then of course, hopefully, this will be helpful to help the implementation of ORDAO and help many other communities benefit from it as well. We've also discussed the approach for handling existing respect from the first epoch. So Zaal had previously asked if we played the respect game at Eden Fractal. I mentioned how we played it at 75 events, and there's probably like 80 or something people who had joined those events and earned respect. So we have an existing respect distribution that's on EOS. And we talked a lot about Tadas about how to, if we should like port that over to base or how we should do that. We had some ideas about using oracles or something like that. And I think that the consensus that we arrived at was that it's probably best to just start with, just start fresh. And then, because there is some technical complexity in porting over the respect from EOS to base, and also like kind of social complexity too, and figuring out the best way to do that and how exactly to calculate it or what role that plays, that respect. Because people who did earn respect during the first epoch of Eden Fractal, that was like maybe 2 years ago in some cases. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts about that new. I mean, my thinking is basically we'd probably just deploy it starting fresh, and then sometime later, like sometime in later in Q1 or Q2 or something like that, 2025, we can maybe explore more ideas for porting over the original respect when it makes sense. But curious if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, so ideal would be that people who have earned respect on EOS, on Eden Fractal, that we could claim respect on base. We cannot distribute to all the members because we have to provide us with the Ethereum keys, Ethereum addresses first. So it would have to be claim process. And I have ideas how to do that, but I'm not sure if I will be able to implement that before January, and I don't think it's worth like waiting for that. I don't think it's this should push back our deployment, trying to aim for this ideal scenario. And I think that just having people who are currently coming, having them be the basically all the respect holders in Orec who will vote on proposals. I think that might be enough too. So what do you think? Do you agree that it's not worth aiming for that ideal of having everyone being able to claim on base?
Yeah, I think that it's a good ideal to go for, like in general, but I think that we should probably prioritize just being able to start playing the respect game at Eden Fractal first, and that we can figure out those details later. And we'd also want to figure out, like, I mentioned like the social complexity, like how much does that respect count compared to the new respect? Because say if somebody joined like 20 events and earned a bunch of respect 2 years ago, then does that mean they have 20 times as much respect as somebody who's joining the respect game and joins, 2 or 3 times now? Because like maybe the people who are contributing to fractal decision-making process and stuff like that should like deserve more respect in some way. Like maybe that should be weighted more because they're more actively contributing. Whereas, so like these just kind of just general thinking because a lot of people who did contribute to Eden Fractal back 2 years ago did help and like laid the foundations for fractal democracy and for fractal decision making process and stuff like that. And they did really important work. So, but there is that question about just like say for example, somebody like Zaal started a fractal and he's implementing it and helping many people benefit from respect game in the Zaal fractal community and stuff like that. And then like somebody who joined a bunch of times but isn't currently operating fractal would have like 10 times or 100 times more voting power than Zaal if we decide to like just port over the total amount of respect. And then
Yeah, so
just try to figure some way to balance that basically.
no, so it would be the same as for Optimism Fractal right now. So we have old respect and we have new respect. So old respect would only be used to pass Orec proposals, and we wouldn't distribute anymore that old respect. So yeah, so from now on, once we start on base, we will have new respect distribution, fresh respect distribution, so which would not take into account the old, basically. We wouldn't be building on the old respect distribution. We would be like starting with fresh distribution, but using old distribution for security.
Right. And so you're thinking that if we were to deploy it in say late January or something like that, and then we, start playing respect games and we would, you're saying that it would take more time to like port over or like figure out how to make it so people can claim their respect uh from Eden Fractal. So in the beginning, we have where the consensus process is just determined based upon the first respect game event. Like basically, if you are in,
No,
oh,
no, it would be like I would deploy a new respect token and distribute it manually, basically, to people who are currently participating in Eden Fractal. And it could be done in proportion to all the respect of Eden Fractal, but it could be like everyone getting one respect, for example, and those people would be basically participants in voting in Orec proposals. Technically, that's the only reason we need to port over respect for ORDAO.
all right, I'm a little bit confused. And then also one thing that popped in my head too is that it might make sense to give some, I don't know, like some amount of respect to people who joined, say, over the past year or so since we stopped playing respect games, with some sort of ratio. Like for example, Zaal or Eric have joined many times and contribute a lot and doing a lot of valuable things, but they've earned zero respect for that because we haven't played the respect game. But it might be helpful to have some sort of like respect distribution that we just figure out in some fair way that we just estimate. Maybe that's a helpful idea to do as well. So that's another idea that's kind of orthogonal to what you're saying. But then I didn't really totally understand what you were saying there about like you give each person one respect basically. So my thinking was either we would have it where the existing respect from Eden Fractal, perhaps with like some other respect amount that we get from the past year of just regular events, maybe everybody got like 10 respect for each event they joined or something like that. Or we have it where we just start totally fresh. And in that case, it would
Yeah,
just be
you're confusing. There are two types of respect in ORDAO. So when I'm talking about porting over, I'm talking about so okay, two types of respect. One is old respect, which is used for passing Orec proposals, and there is another respect contract, which is which tracks, which basically gives people respect for respect games and other contributions which are happening now. Yeah, so for the only reason technically why ORDAO needs to port over respect from Eden Fractal in EOS is for passing Orec proposals. And for Orec proposals, we only need old respect, basically. So is that clearer?
Yeah, but say if we don't port over any of the respect from EOS, then what would form as the old respect then?
Yeah, so what about you could just say, give everyone, one person, one vote. That still would work for ORDAO well enough. Or we could just give everyone respect in proportion of the respect earned. So basically, we could port over. I mean, we wouldn't be porting over the whole respect distribution, but for people who are currently participating are providing their Ethereum addresses, for them we could give them the exact amount that they earned. Maybe that would be better.
Yeah, maybe that would be better. And so I was previously thinking that there could be a different option, which is just like, can ORDAO work with not two versions of respect, but just one version of respect, where like you give out respect for each weekly event, and then that becomes the respect that owns the contract, without having an
Yeah,
old version of respect?
yeah, I was considering that too. But I think for Eden Fractal especially, it's relevant, that feature where we start fresh respect distribution, say after an epoch or so, because you just mentioned uh, is the respect from few years ago, is it worth as much as the current respect? And I don't think that we should give as much respect to people who are not participating anymore. So yeah, we could, however, do it where Orec also is able to distribute old respect after deployment. So for example, we could invite old Eden Fractal participants and yeah, to join at any time, and we provide the Ethereum address, and we pass Orec proposals to distribute them all the respect contract, the amount that they earned in the past.
Right, and so we'd be able to start out with one kind of old respect, and then we could add to that old respect contract, like according to people's stuff. So maybe it starts out with one person, one vote, but then in 2 months, when we have time to figure out how to like migrate the old respect, then we can add it so that that old respect counts on the contract to own it as well, basically.
Yeah. Although in that case, I will start by initial distribution where we get the amounts that we earned. So basically, not one person, one vote, but basically.
The amount that you earn in the respect games.
What? Sorry?
You mean to say it's not one person, one vote, but the amount of respect that a person gets in every bi-weekly respect game?
The amount of
Since we
respect that
start.
the person earned in old Eden Fractal on EOS. That's for all the respect, at least. Which will be voting on proposals. So not one person, one vote, but yeah.
Okay. But until then, until you port over until that works,
Yeah, so no,
how are we going
that would be the first version, but the thing about that first version is that we wouldn't port over the whole distribution. We would only port over respect of people who are right now participating and
Okay.
giving us their Ethereum addresses on base.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks to Das for all the answers and Rosmari for the questions. Do you have any other questions, Rosmari, on this? Any other
No, I
thoughts?
think I understood.
Okay. I think so too, but I'm gonna have to think about it. Other thoughts that popped in my head too is that Eden Fractal, because we're supporting all fractals, we could potentially decide to respect contributions to other fractals too. Like say Optimism Fractal, people who have participated in Optimism Fractal and helped, we could award some level of respect for Eden Fractal to them as well. Or say Genesis Fractal. A lot of people contributed to the Genesis Fractal before Eden Fractal. I saw actually Atma Love was a contributor in Genesis Fractal who was asking if he could claim his respect in some way from the Genesis Fractal. And Genesis Fractal had, over 100 people, I think, who participated in that one. And, Zaal Fractal and the Respect.Games app and stuff like that. Like, there are all these different existing distributions of people who have contributed to our general goal of implementing fractal decision-making processes. So it might make sense to not just reward people who join specifically Eden Fractal events, but also award and recognize and give respect to people who have contributed to other fractals. I don't know if that makes it too complex, but that could potentially be a good way to support all fractals. And also maybe we can also rally together the fractal communities, who have participated in various ways and give more people a say in how Eden Fractal and this like the next step that Eden Fractal is leading for fractal decision-making process throughout society. Maybe we can invite them and give them some say and respect, basically, by doing that. So I don't know if
But
we want to get into that, but that's another idea that could be worth considering at some point too.
how would that be different from playing normal respect game in Eden Fractal? Like, because I think the main contribution to Eden Fractal's mission is just creating and supporting new fractals. I mean, I think that would be the main contribution that realistically that people bring here. And so, yeah, people who build other fractals could just do that. Or if you want to retroactively award contributions to old fractals, then I think maybe higher order fractal idea would be more useful to rally everyone around. Because then you would have respect for individual fractals, and you could wait in respect of those fractals by respect of that fractal from higher order fractal.
Okay, interesting. Maybe something going on with higher fractals we could bring up and implement here. My thinking with the reason why it might be helpful is because, like basically, I think you stated, the new respect games, if we go with this game prompt that I'm suggesting, would be to basically award people for contributing to fractals. But that's future looking and forward looking, whereas people did a lot of retroactive work for fractals over the past 3 years or so. 4 years to some extent, going back to the elections before we started using the fractal process, but that was still fractal democracy before we did the respect game. In which case, those are retroactive contributions that we could retroactively award. And I don't know exactly if that would award it in the same way, or I don't know if the higher order fractal would be as effective as just retroactively awarding respect based upon the existing respect distributions, because then you'd have to, I don't know exactly how that would work. I'd be curious if you want to share more thoughts about that here or in chat or whatever, about exactly how you envision that the higher order fractal would accomplish that. But my thinking is like these ledgers are basically out there already. They already have the numbers that we could use. If we wanted to say, hey, we're going to give 10% of all the respective Eden fractal from the old respect to Genesis fractal, then we could just do that basically, and then just take that spreadsheet that they have that was been posted on Hive and stuff like that, and add that, and then say, I don't know, 50% to Eden Fractal and 10% to Optimism Fractal and 10% to Zaal Fractal or whatever. Like those are just numbers we could take without having to make like, I don't know exactly how the higher order fractal decision making process would be, but perhaps this could simplify it. If we did want to retroactively award these and have it where it can like kind of rally around people, because then people could say, oh, I earned respect to Eden Fractal and the new epoch and stuff like that, and that's a way that I'm being valued for my contributions to fractals over the past years. And they don't have to like join another event to say, here's what I did over the past 2 years. They just get awarded because those numbers are publicly available, and we like kind of fork it into our existing respect distribution because they've contributed to fractal decision-making processes over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that naturally brings up higher order fractal idea for me, because like you said, like how much the respect from, for example, Genesis fractal is worth the new respect. Like how much we should award if someone earned 100 respect in the Genesis fractal. How does it translate?
By new respect, I'm a bit confused. You mean new respect like the new respect that they earn from, say, joining an event in February and then earning 55 respect by getting level 6? Or by new respect, you mean like the new old respect from
No, I mean,
ORDAO?
well, of course. That's a good question. I'm not sure which respect you were talking about. I
Getting
had in
fractal here.
mind the new respect. Uh, but I don't know if there is any purpose in awarding the old respect.
Well, that's what I was saying. I was saying just keep it simple. The new respect, you come to Eden Fractal, you get 55 respect for getting level 6, or 34 respect for getting level 5 or whatever in February or March or whatever. Maybe at some point we decide to change the numbers, but keep it simple and keep it the same. My suggestion was that everybody's on equal footing there. If they came to Genesis Fractal or whatever, then they could say that, and maybe that would help them, get some people to respect that more in general, but still the problem should be for the past 2 weeks or past week or something like that. But then the respect that we're like using to bootstrap, basically like the starting respect, if we do have that, if we're going to port over the existing respect from Eden Fractal, Eden Fractal is representative of everybody who the Eden Fractal respect distribution is a good representation and a good sample of how much people have contributed to fractal decision-making processes over the years. But lots of people contribute a lot to fractal decision-making processes that didn't contribute to Eden Fractal, that never joined the Eden Fractal meeting. And this can be a way to award them as well. So it seems like it might be, more fair, and also more like it might help us attract those people to join more, because then they're like, oh, even though I didn't join the Eden Fractal, I joined, I spent many hours at Genesis Fractal and stuff like that, and now I can finally do something with that.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. But how do we decide, like, how much respect, in this case, the old respect and the old respect in the new deployment? How much, like, if somebody earned 100 respect in Genesis fractal, like, to how much fractal does it, to how much respect does it translate in the new deployment? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, but I think it might be a good question to ask and figure out.
Yeah, that's the purpose of higher order fractal idea. You figure out how much fractal did as a whole. And so let's say we figure out like the Genesis
How?
fractal did the
How do you
80%.
figure it out?
What?
How do you figure it out?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to explain now. So higher order fractal would, result of higher order fractal would be ranking of fractals. And fractal which would get ranked at the top would basically mean that we think that this fractal contributed the most as a whole, that it contributed the most to fractal ecosystem as a whole. And so that means that respect that this fractal, top ranked fractal distributed, is the most valuable compared to, for example, fractals which respect of fractals which got ranked lower. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. Who does the ranking? What's the process? Is it one respect game?
Yeah, so that's higher order fractal idea. So what I proposed then is that each fractal elects a representative in whatever way, and one representative per fractal, and yeah, so representatives play respect game where they represent a fractal basically.
Represent a fractal for the past 2 years, for example, in 4 minutes, or
Yes, we could expand the time. We could change the rules here,
We
and
get
I
5
think
minutes.
it's worth thinking about how to change the rules. But I think it
is
could
this
be
just for
fun
one
event.
time, one respect game, then this gets decided, then, and that is solely for the purpose to distribute this older respect, and that's it.
Well, I think definitely it's the kind of event that it does not make sense to do this like weekly or bi-weekly or whatever. I was thinking monthly, but maybe yearly or in every 2 years, or maybe just for this one case. Let's see how it goes, and maybe we will do it sometime later.
Sounds
But
good.
yeah, I like then your idea instead of using Eden Fractals distribution. That's but then if we distribute to people from other fractals, then I say we do need higher order fractal event.
It's
Well,
one
I think
event, right?
what?
One event, right?
Yes, one. Well,
Okay.
I don't think it makes sense to think further that would be an experiment because we haven't tried this. So it's not
The
worth
thing is,
thinking
we have
about
to invite
multiple.
people in advance.
Yeah, of course.
And so we get one speaker from each fractal to speak, basically. And they'd be like presenting their contributions, and maybe they get, 6 minutes or something like that, 7 minutes to just share what the history of the fractal is, and then we would just like vote on it. I don't know exactly how it would work, and also we are going on an hour and a half, so we could follow up with this, but I'm happy to stick around too if you want, but don't want to like keep you up too late if it's late there or anything like that. But so let me know whenever you want to stop. But I still don't. I still have questions about how it works. Like, say if there's, I don't know if there's multiple
I
breakout
don't have
rooms.
like it fleshed out with all the details. It's something would have to work on to really be clear on the rules of the game. But basically, that's the core idea of the game, to have fractals compete through representatives in the respect game. And yeah, I have defined some more concrete rules in that old article, but I'm not sure. We need to rethink everything basically and just design the game. And
Yeah, being that, so I remember the article, but I think the article is more so like specified for currently running fractals, if I remember correctly. And you did have the idea of having it on a monthly basis, so it'd have to be redesigned because it's like you have questions like who is the representative? Maybe there's two people who want to represent a fractal, but then how is it decided if they don't have, if they're not operating, they don't have their own consensus process to elect a representative, then how do you decide which person represents it? There's fractals like Alien Worlds fractal that aren't operating anymore, that operated for, probably half a year or longer. Same with Genesis Fractal. And then also I wonder, so I like the idea of doing an event to decide this and maybe just like deciding it at the event and having these kinds of pitches and stuff like that. But I also wonder too, if we use the typical Fibonacci algorithm and like, well, another question I have is if you were to do breakout rooms, then how many fractals are there total that have the existence? There's been probably lots of fractals that have met for like a few events or something like that, but not many. Oh, I see Rosemary said she's going to go soon. Do you want to share any last thoughts before you go, Rosemary? Or should we aim to wrap it up in a few minutes? Just wrap up the
I'm
whole
gonna
event?
go.
Or okay.
Thank you.
see
Thanks,
you.
Rosemary. See you.
See you. Bye-bye. Great event.
Thank you, thank you. So I suppose I'll finish my thought and then we can decide if we want to wrap it up or if we want to keep discussing it. Happy to go either way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so just like some questions that would arise, like how to decide who gets elected, how to decide which fractals you run on the list, like and then is the Fibonacci algorithm appropriate? Like, or would it be better if we just have a consensus process where we just like vote on it, kind of like with the OPF trees or the retropose idea, where we vote on it either with one person, one vote, or with our existing respect. Maybe the Eden Fractal respect is used to vote for respecting other fractals, because like the Fibonacci algorithm has it where it's according to 55, 34, or whatever. Like each one is 60% more, but maybe one deserves more than 60% more. Maybe one deserves just like a half percent, whereas the next one deserves 4% or whatever. So it might be more like fair and representative if we just vote with respect on it, and then maybe like a weighted voting poll or something like that. That's an option. But still maybe doing the event and still calling it the higher order fractal, but I don't know if that's too different from your current idea, from your idea. And then also if there are breakout rooms too, if there is like say eight fractals that are competing in this, and then like you do two different breakout rooms, then if you just do that once, then only each one only gets ranked by 3 other people, whereas the other 4 people in the other breakout room don't get a chance to rank the other one. And then you have 2 fractals that automatically get level 6. So that means those 2 fractals are equal, even though maybe they're not equal. Maybe one deserves more respect, but it just happens to be randomization that which is why they wind up being equal. So those are some questions I'd have about this higher order fractal design.
Yeah, good questions. We need to redesign the game. But yeah, my point is that it's worth maybe thinking about it. I already started thinking that maybe to resolve the problem that people cannot elect their representatives for non-active fractals. Okay, invite everyone, and then ask everyone who represents which fractal. If there is more than one person representing one fractal, then they have to reach consensus among themselves for fractal to be able to participate. We have to maybe reach consensus for one person who should be one person who represents a fractal, or we should in respect game issue consensus for their voice. But I don't know, I'm brainstorming here.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think this could be a powerful idea, because it would be an event that unites, bring all the existing and past fractal initiatives, and if it's well designed, maybe people would respect it, and yeah, if we could get something like respect distribution encompassing all fractals, basically.
Yeah, I think it could be quite powerful, especially now that we have a lot of people have been really passionate about fractals and fractal governance, but just like the time wasn't always right because the software wasn't developed and it was kind of siloed in different in networks and there's early stage and stuff like that. But now, like as we have the ORDAO software and the Fractogram app and the Respect Games app, and we have like a lot of it was also early, like people didn't know what to call it. Now we have good branding, good educational resources, all these things, good events and stuff like that. And we're branching out into more and more ecosystems. Now it's like maybe it's a good opportunity to reach back out to those people who contributed and really like the idea, but just the places, the pieces weren't in place for them to stay in a sustainable manner, because they had to focus on other stuff while this stuff was being built. But now maybe it's a good time to, reach back out to them and have it in this way that's on chain, like respecting what they did over the past few years and inviting them back to join in this next stage, this next epoch, as we're really taking the next step to implement these factor decision-making processes much more throughout society. And, people can now use those tools and stuff like that. So it could be a good way to be able to bring people together back and stimulate the next generation of growth and help empower people with the processes that they got so excited about in the first place.
So do you think I should work on designing this game, or
well,
or do you want to work, or would you work on it, or is it not worth it, or
well, I think it's a good idea to do an event about it for sure, and I think it's a good idea to reach out to people about it. I mean, I'm also going to think about it too, so I'm saying for sure. But like from right now, it seems like a very good idea to do it. Um, I don't know. I had all those questions about the higher fractal, and to me, it seems like that option with using something like the OPF trees slash the retropoles kind of design would be a simpler way to do it, where we have people that can present what they do. Maybe if I think there's a good chance that people won't want to like compete over who gets presented to. Like if 2 or 3 people want to present from a certain fractal, then I'd say let them present it, and just everybody's welcome to present their fractal, and then maybe we have like I don't know, maybe a week or two to vote on the polls, or maybe we vote on the polls during that event, and then we use like the Eden Fractal Respect to vote on it or something. But I don't know.
yeah, but Eden, that's not fair to use respect of one fractal to determine like value that all fractals brought. You know what I mean?
Yes, but I don't know. I mean, it's fair. Like in a lot of cases when people like launch a token, like there'll be a centralized team that just says, okay, 20% of this, 10% of that, 15% of that, whatever. In this way, yeah, and I guess it's not ideal because some people, haven't contributed at all and they're getting a lot of voting power, whereas people who contribute to the other, like say Genesis Fractal don't have voting power. So I don't know. I mean, I think it could just be like a small decision just from the people who are currently participating in adding to Eden Fractal, like, and we could just make a small decision like those kind of centralized teams, and that would still maybe be beneficial. But I agree there is like a problem there with. But if any community is going to do it, it's Eden Fractal. So the Eden Fractal respect distribution seems like it might make the most sense to vote on the allocation as well. But then again, the Eden Fractal respect distribution is imperfect as well because it hasn't counted over the past year of contributions too. So I also see problems with what I'm suggesting too. But another question I have too is this can be changed, right? So ORDAO allows you to change the respect distribution. So say if we have one respect distribution where we say give Genesis Fractal 20%, and then we're like, oh, actually Genesis Fractal deserves 25% or 15% or whatever. Then we could always deploy it. Um, and then like 3 months later or something like that, maybe we come up with some better way, or maybe we use that existing the initial respect distribution that we decide that has Genesis Fractal at 20% and Alien Worlds Fractal at 2% or 5% or whatever, and Eden Fractal at whatever, and then we use that to come up with the new respect distribution. And then we could change that as we go, kind of, right? Like maybe that'd be more complex than necessary, but I think that would work too. So it's not like we have to like do all or nothing, figure out the perfect distribution right away. We could always update it with ORDAO like a few months down the line, right?
Yes, we could. Although if you start, with, let's say we start with totally wrong distribution, and it could misalign the whole, chain of distribution.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I think it would be having this event that everyone would respect as fair, like would really give like legitimacy to the respect distribution. Like if that respect distribution is respected by all the fractals, then we have respect distribution that unites all the fractals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be valuable. And maybe that's where you said on a monthly basis or something like that, like a recurring basis, every 2 months, something like that, we could um, help make it more fair. Because even just like deciding everything at one event, one of the benefits of the respect game and fractal process is that it takes many measurements. It takes measurements each week or or every other week. Whereas sometimes you just get unlucky, and you get a low respect score even though you deserve more, or you got in the top breaker or whatever. So perhaps that idea about having that higher order fractal on a more recurring basis could come in handy for.
Yeah, although it's only a problem if you have more breakout rooms, and I'm thinking that maybe even you could have more than 6 fractals in one room up to certain level. Like if more than 12, that would be way too much.
Right. Well, I don't know. I suppose we can. I'm also not sure how high of a priority is to think of all these things too, because there's um like most of this discussion we focused on just how to like deploy ORDAO and then set the game prompts if we're going to set core intents, like basically what our strategy is for the upcoming um, events and awarding like real-time contributions. And then this past half hour, so we've been discussing these retroactive contributions. So it's also worth prioritizing basically to figure out. Because I see a lot of value in retroactively awarding these and recognizing these. But I don't know if that should take priority over just getting everything set up so that we can start awarding contributions going forward. And they can happen in parallel to some extent too, but it'll just be worth thinking about the best way to organize these and prioritize these too. So that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, that's right. We could. There is nothing pushing us to do this now. We could do higher order fractal event later. It's just that maybe for me it would get rid of a problem how to port over Eden Fractal respect. We don't port over. We do a new event, in which we which determines a new distribution. But in some ways, I don't know, that porting over mechanism could be useful later also, and show some cross chain mobility of fractals.
Yeah, I
maybe
agree. Go ahead.
maybe that's useful on its own.
Yeah, for sure it is. And also, yeah, if the options are either just use zero respect distribution, or I don't know, maybe we just do our best to approximate the retroactive one. And also, my suggestion there was to, start this in January, but we could also take more time to plan it out too if we want to. I mean, that gives us, it's almost the end of November, so we'll have all of December and then at least some of January to decide this. But if we do want to take more time to plan this out, then we could as well. And I guess we could launch it in like the right way, as opposed to launching it too quickly, rushing into too many events and not setting that foundation. So I don't know, maybe we should just think it over. There's also a lot of new information too with all those proposals I made and your suggestion about using the higher order fractal, and maybe we'll do a different game prompt or something like that. So I don't know. I agree. It would be great to solve that problem, and that is kind of like something that existing respect distribution is like an important component of this, basically, and it could be a big opportunity to grow what we're doing, and it would make it easier to figure out how to port it over and how to be fair. So I think it's definitely worth considering. But
Yes, and we could porting existing distribution would it's not huge amount of work. Maybe I would be able to do it soon enough, and maybe it is worth it because it could be incentive for people to come join, for all participants to rejoin Eden Fractal.
mhm.
Would be nice.
Well, reporting over, and I suppose just one other question I want to ask here. Like, I don't know how you're thinking about doing it. I know we talked about it. We talked about like using Oracle, or we looked into UMA, the optimistic Oracle, and stuff like that. I had the suggestion that we could just like manually do it as well. Like, I'm curious, and feel free to let me know if you want to save this discussion for later, because I know we're well over time already. So, but that's the one question I have too. But just like, what would be the process of porting it over? Like, say if we allow people to claim it, then would that just be like you using or console to just be like, okay,
No,
that person said they're going to claim, and so I'm going to put in, like 800 respect for them and send it to this account or something.
I think right now I'm thinking the most legitimate way would be, the good thing about this is that Eden Fractal respect distribution is now stable. So I could basically deploy a smart contract which has in it basically respect distribution, but it would be EOS account name, amount of respect. And the smart contract would work like this, that if person claim, there is a claim function, so an app where person would come in, sign in with Ethereum account, sign in with EOS account, then with EOS account he would sign the Ethereum address that he's using now, and he would send a transaction to that smart contract claim function, and smart contract would verify the signature made with EOS private key, and yeah, if it matches, if it's verified, then it would distribute respect that this account had. That
Okay.
would be trustless way.
And is that something you'd build, or I imagine there's some sort of existing, I think I've heard of some existing tools that might be used for this, or maybe existing smart contracts. So that's something you need to like build from scratch, or something that you could use some existing service for it to
I
make it easier.
already looked at, there is a Solidity library for verifying signatures that the type of signatures that EOS uses.
Mhm.
So that's the main thing I need that makes it feasible. Although I'm not sure about gas costs, how much it will cost to claim, but probably not like probably won't make it unfeasible. If you have some, I don't know, maybe there are uh, projects which have done it already. If you're aware of any of that, then yeah, because right now I'm aware of library which would verify signatures, but not much else with regards to what I need to do. If there is something that already have done more, so it would be useful.
Okay. Yeah. We'd also have to think about too if we do want to distribute respect to the other fractals. Fractals have operated on wax, for example, the Alien Worlds fractal. The fractal for the Genesis fractal never operated on EOS. It operated on people posted their consensus on Hive, and then it has a like a Google spreadsheet, I think that's backed up in a few different places. But they have Hive addresses though. They have Hive private keys. So
My thinking is that either keep the distribution separate. So if we create new deployment for Eden Fractal, then the distribution should match the old distribution of Eden Fractal, and we don't mix. If we want to mix, we go with higher order fractal idea. For me, that would be cleaner. Well, we could. Maybe like this. For now I would only do this claim process for Eden, for porting over all Eden fractal respect distribution. If Eden fractal then decides to award other fractals, it can pass an Orec proposal. Personally, I would be against that if you're not doing high order fractal thing, but it's technically possible, so it's up to consensus of new Eden fractal.
okay, and so you think the first step would be to port over Eden fractal respect from EOS either way, and then if we did something that seems like a fair process, then the Eden fractal Orec would, or the Eden fractal respect distribution would approve a transaction via Orec to also give respect to Genesis fractal, wax fractal, or not wax
No,
fractal, Alien Worlds fractal, and so
it
forth.
could be any process. If it's totally fair process, then we don't even need Eden fractal because everyone will trust that distribution. Yeah, but my main point here is that let's start with just porting over Eden fractal. If we want to represent old respect, which does not yet exist on base, then I would start by porting over Eden fractal, and other fractals would be too much for me anyway at this point, if we wanted to do it soon enough.
Okay. Okay, well, sounds good. I think we have a lot to think about. Is So to answer your question before about whether you should develop the higher vector more or I should develop it more, I mean, um, I'm interested. I think maybe I'll listen to the post again for inspiration, or maybe listen to your talk. I remember I listened to it, and I started to write about it again like 6 months ago. So I have a pretty decent idea of it, but I can listen to it again and then just see for inspiration. And then I suppose I don't know if you want to prioritize this over the actual implementation of ORDAO or other things you have on your plate. But maybe, and we've had a lot of information already, and we've been over 2 hours. So maybe it's good if we wrap it up, or we start wrapping it up, and then we can think about priorities if we want to focus more on the higher fractal, or focus more on the respect distribution, or focus more on all those other ideas about the game prompt and the core intents and stuff like that I shared. What do you think? Is there anything else you want to discuss here before we wrap it up, or you want to think about these more?
No, I think both of us need to think more about this, and let's come back to these ideas.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. I agree. Well, we made some exciting progress today and lots to consider. So maybe I'll wrap up with the brief presentation like in like a minute because I also pulled up Hierofractal too, so in case anybody wants to check out the article, then they can also get involved and look at what we're talking about for more details. So um, we've been talking about our strategic vision here and what is our plan for 2025. And I recommend people, I encourage people to check out the Eden Fractal Telegram group, t.me/EdenFractal, which you can find at edenfractal.com. And then check out this article that I wrote, Eden Fractal 2025 Strategy, Nurturing Transformative Growth, and provide any feedback on the four proposals. And just share your thoughts in general. Feel free to comment directly on the Notion page or in Telegram. There is also, for anybody who wants to dive in deeper, there's those strategic framework documents. I had some really exciting ideas about like building long-term institutions and developing a product and roadmap and stuff like that. So these are all kind of earlier stage, but if anybody wants to dive in deeper than those, and you can. But those are also be working on more. And then yeah, check out these proposals and let me think. I'm very curious, Tadas, if you have more ideas after digesting and thinking more about if you think there's a better game prompt or if you like these, and similarly, if you like the idea of the core intents, we didn't really dive in deeply to some of these, but very curious to hear from anybody out there what they think about these ideas. Check out, if you're not familiar, optimistic.io/ORDAO. Super, super helpful software that this conversation is revolving around, and I'm really excited to help everybody benefit from. The higher order fractal article, you can check out Tadas's Peaked account at sim31 at sim31peaked.com. And this is where Tadas had summarized. There's also a way you can listen to this post, the idea of the higher order fractal. And we did also discuss this at Eden Fractal meeting, like, I don't know, 75 or something like that. So if you go and search the YouTube channel for Eden Creators, you can also find more details about that too. And I also want to invite everybody to Optimism Fractal, which is coming up on a Thursday at 17 UTC. And for both these events, we're going to be doing a winter break probably for the holiday season. But for the next few weeks, everything will proceed as normally scheduled. Encourage everybody to join Optimism Fractal Season 5. We're making huge progress there, as well as the town hall that comes afterwards. And looking forward to seeing everybody again at the Eden Fractal event coming up in 2 weeks, I believe on November 10th or December 10th or December 11th. And then we'll have a lot more to discuss there about the ORDAO implementation and our game prompts and core intents and all that stuff like that. So thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Thanks so much to Das for all the great work on ORDAO and all the help and guidance and everything like that, and great ideas for next stage for Eden Fractal. Really excited about our next steps.
Thanks, Dan, for hosting this and for great discussions and this proposal. Beautifully written.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. All right. Should we wrap it up? Should we say go Eden Fractal, maybe?
Go Harry Potter.
Go Harry Potter. All right. We can do that one too. 3, 2, 1. Go Harry Potter. That was an inside joke from before. We were doing silly stuff beforehand. Also, go Eden Fractal. All right. Thanks so much, Das. Thanks everybody so much for watching. Hope to see you at the next events, and have a great day.